español, favor de presionar el enlace en la parte baja de la pantalla que dice Interpretation para interpretación. Gracias. And with that, I will call the meeting to order. Mr. Wilcox, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I am going to move up the my report, President's report. It should be brief. First thing being the update on the hybrid meetings. I've asked Attorney Alexiadis and Mr. Lamb to please give us an update with the plan at our next meeting so that we can figure out how we're going to proceed. It's sounding like Obama School may be the choice for the hybrid meeting, but we want to make sure that it's going to work out perfectly, and so I want to make sure that they do a test run and all of that before we definitely confirm that. The next item is the superintendent search update. Tomorrow we will be meeting with the search firm McPherson and Jacobson, and they will present candidates for us to look at which point hopefully we'll be by the end of the night deciding on the candidates to move forward for interviews with the stakeholders and also with the board members. And so we'll know more about that tomorrow as we meet with the search firm tomorrow afternoon. That's going to be a Zoom meeting at 4:30 p.m. for the board members, just a reminder. And I believe Dr. Sklerstein sent over the Zoom link for that meeting tomorrow. Okay. And seeing no questions or comment, we can move forward to public participation.
Let me remind the people presenting that you have 3 minutes to speak. When your time is up, I will call time. You will finish your sentence. Please do not go beyond the sentence that you're completing. Mr. White, I'm ready.
Sure. If there anyone who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Our first speaker is Teresa Johnson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Good evening. I was calling in to talk about the superintendent search, which was just mentioned, I believe. And as a parent and a community member, it led me to question if you really wanted participation from the community, because the information that was sent out was very vague. There was only an hour at the very beginning of the morning, which is at the exact time that a parent like myself would be dropping our children off at school. So although we may be available because, we could probably get the time off of work or push our schedules back, we can't push back the time that our children have to go to school. And then secondly, it did not indicate where these meetings were going to be held. It just kept enforcing, you must be available all 3 days. You must be available all 3 days. That part was driven home several times, but the important logistics were not given, which makes it very hard for people to give a commitment or to even participate in those meetings. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Abe Ben-Ghiat. I do apologize if I mispronounce your name.
No, that's perfect. Can I go on video, or is that not an option?
That's not an option. We bring you on to speak, and you're now open, and Dr. Joyner will start the timer.
Okay, perfect.
Already started it. Time. I started when you call on the person, assuming they're going to start speaking. So I'm going to start it again.
Perfect.
Since he's new. Hold up. Okay, you may start, Mr. Bengiat.
Okay, thank you. Hello, members of the New Haven School Committee. My name is Abe Bengiat. I am a 3-year resident of New Haven and a 2-year part-time substitute teacher at New Haven Public Schools. I started working as a part-time substitute teacher on my off Fridays to give back to the community. Since October 2011, I have subbed a total of 16 times at 7 different schools. I have seen many great things in terms of students and faculty, and I have seen horrendous things, including kids threatening to beat me up, academic malpractice, attendance of less than 50% in many classes, fights in the classroom, and lack of administrative caring. I am continuously appalled by the state of our school system, and I want to focus my time today on one specific issue, the substitute teacher experience and what we can do to improve it. As of now, when you are a new or returning substitute teacher at the school in New Haven, you show up, you're given a class schedule, and you're instructed how to take attendance. That's it, nothing else. This has been consistent across all 7 schools I have worked at. You don't get told the pass policy, how to call the main office, the nurse or recess policy, what to do when a kid needs to go to the guidance counselor or other places, or how to get help in an emergency, etc. There is, sometimes they even get 0 sub plans for the whole day from the teacher. I show up, the kids show up, there's no work for them to do, I'm just a babysitter. This is both unacceptable and easily avoidable. The simple solution is for a staff guide similar to the one that full-time staff receive at the beginning of the year to be handed out to all stubs. Not only will this increase the quality of education, but also increase substitute retention. I have developed a template for such a guide and sent it to Dr. Michael Finley, whom I had a conversation with about these issues in late 2022. But I have received no response or any follow-up despite multiple emails and phone calls. I also want to make it mandatory for teachers to leave substitute teacher plans. Having kids sit and do nothing for an hour and a half is a waste of time. And when work is on Google Classroom, the substitute teacher should be left a copy, not left up to ask the kids what they should be doing. I want to emphasize here that I do want to be part of the solution. One last thing I want to bring up. Next year, the city or state minimum wage will be $15 an hour. Next year, per my understanding, the substitute teacher wage will be $100 a day. Many subbing jobs will make under the minimum wage. When you pay substitute teachers below the minimum wage, think about the quality of staff you receive and the message it sends. You can literally work at a fast food joint for more money than teach our children. I implore you to address this issue in the next 6 months. As a citizen of New Haven, I can confidently say that if this school system reflects our future, I'm horrified about what is to come. I do want to be part of the solution. Please contact me directly about next steps. My email is in the public comments. I've reached out many times. I've offered time and time again to help. I hope this time the outcome can be different. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Kim. We did a test. Oh, sorry.
Okay, at this time, if there are no more raised hands from the public, we'll move to panelists. Hold up. Bringing Dr. Benitez across. One more time, any raised hands from the public? Seeing none, I recognize Mr. Golson.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to report that I am here at the great New Haven Federation of Teachers headquarters on Chapel Street with a bunch of our teachers and other community members watching this meeting and participating as a board member. So I would invite this board to open up the meeting as soon as possible so that these community people could come to our facilities and participate in our school meetings. I just want to repeat what I've been repeating and put on the record for future reference with the FOIC. Again, I've submitted official FOI requests, have not received responses yet. After many months of waiting, I requested the names of the persons who participated in the focus and stakeholder groups for the superintendent search. I think it's important for the community to know who are representing them in this process, and I have yet to receive those names.
I asked for a briefing of student transfers at Brennan Rogers School. Have yet to receive that briefing or any materials related to that move. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, that concludes all raised hands.
Thank you, Dr. White and Dr. Joyner. We'll move on to the next item, which is the approval of the board meeting minutes. We'll start with the February 27th minutes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the which was February 27th. The board meetings of February 27th.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Wilcox, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on approving the February 27 minutes. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Benitez,
yes,
Dr. Yarborough,
yes,
Mr. Bolton.
Abstain.
There's students not on, no. Mayor Elicker,
yes,
and I'm a yes as well, and so meeting minutes for February 27th pass. Next are the January 23rd, 2023 meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minute meetings of January 23rd, 2023.
Thank
Second.
you, Joyner. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote to approve the January 23rd meeting minutes. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
yes,
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
yes,
Mayor Elicker,
yes,
and I'm a yes as well. And so the meeting minutes of January 23rd also pass. And so we'll move on to the personnel report, Dr. Tracy.
Thank you and good evening, board and members of the community. I have a very short personnel report today. As it was last time, 2 teachers resigned and 2 were hired. I asked you to accept the personnel report.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Their motion to accept, Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, I move that we approve the action items of the superintendent's personnel report.
I second,
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on approving the action items of the personnel report. Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
yes,
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
yes,
Mayor Elicker.
yes.
I am a yes as well, for the action items of the personnel report pass. Dr. Tracy, did you want to go over the non-action item of the personnel?
Only one item on there, which is our recording secretary, Ms. Murdis. I couldn't miss that. She has resigned, moving on to perhaps a better job. But I only hope, Ms. Murdis, that you're not leaving the board. You'll still be our recording secretary.
yes, I will. I'm not leaving.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, no questions or comments for Dr. Tracy? Okay, seeing none, finance and operations, Mr. Wilcox?
All right, thank you very much. Before I present these items, just see if there's anything that needs to be moved separately. And hearing and seeing none, so I'll go ahead and make the motion here, and that is I move that we approve the 5 agreements, the 3 contracts, and the 5 purchase orders as recommended for approval by Finance and Operations.
Second,
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox and Dr. Yarborough. Any discussion? Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. For the people who are listening in that may not be familiar with what we're doing around the search firm. Could we get a small report on what this amendment on agreement number 5 represents?
Yes, I can provide one if you would like. So as part of the, so we approved the full proposal with the search firm, and there was some optional services that they provide, including that they could have somebody here on site during the on-site interviews to manage that process, to meet with the different committees and groups that are going to be talking with the superintendent candidates, debriefing those groups after, and then working with the board. So the board decided to take up this, and so this is the fees for that and an estimate of the expenses to have somebody here on site. So it was the optional services that was part of it was presented in the proposal that we approved as optional, so we're taking that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox, Mr. Bolton. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote to approve the F&O items. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, and so the F&O items passed. Wow, we're moving really nicely. Students report, I still don't see the students here, so we'll move on to teaching and learning. Dr. Joyner?
I have no report at this time. We haven't had a meeting since the last board meeting. And many of our top people have been out on conferences, learning more about how to run the system. No report.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joyner. Facilities naming committee?
No report.
No report. Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Tracy.
Well, you came back around to me so fast, huh?
Yeah, right? They're moving nicely.
Moving nicely. So tonight I think what I may do is move up that item before I have the principals presenting and Miss Linda Hannon's presenting. Someone requested an update on the open choice Woodbridge issue. Miss Tiffany Jackson, please give a brief update and then we'll move on to the other items.
So what I'll do is I'll give a context of what we're dealing with at Woodbridge in public schools, and then if there's any questions, certainly feel free to ask me any appropriate questions. So I'll give you the shortest version of the context. Pretty much, we have to pay for special education services through our open choice programs to our suburban school districts and even students who are coming into district. And what the legislation talks about, what we pay is what we call the difference between reasonable cost. There has since been in Woodbridge a changing of leadership, special education directors, superintendent of schools, finance directors. We've been dealing with those changes for now over a year. There's over a year and a half, 2 different superintendents, 2 different financial directors, and an additional special education director. Where I think where we've seen some information that's come out of sort is because of the fact that in one of the meetings, a public meeting for Woodbridge, they shared information about New Haven Public Schools, commentary about we don't pay our bills, things of that sort. As a result, we have talked with, or since have talked with the superintendent and board chair and also financial persons at Woodbridge Public Schools, again, to discuss what these costs are, what we feel to be reasonable based on legislation. And at the end of the day, I think that some of what we are hearing or some of what we've heard has a lot to do with the changing of folks that have been within Woodbridge Public Schools. We've never had public commentary, nor have we ever had these disputes more so than a couple of years ago, as there's been some changing of the guards. Now, I will let you know, as representing New Haven Public Schools, I am always going to make sure that we're fiscally responsible and making sure that we are only going to pay what it is that we are due to pay through are any of our processes. I am not someone, and I'm just being honest, I'm not just going to sign a check over to any school system that's outside of what we believe to be the cost that we need to pay. And I think that's where you saw the strain at this point in time with Woodbridge Public Schools. And I think that the reason why it became what it became was because there was public commentary that was out there regarding New Haven Public Schools. As I mentioned, I've mentioned this to a couple of people, you're going to start to see some things that are going to be coming up if you're in finance and operation. I mention this about charter schools all the time, about the cost that we pay. And that's not this same legislation. This is about issues of gross inequity. And so as I'm talking about Woodbridge Open Choice, I'm just sharing with you more that's going to come. I just want to make sure that you understand that we are responsible. We are good stewards of our spending. And making sure that we are doing only what's required of us and not spending anything above and beyond that. So I think that in a nutshell is what you need to know as far as Woodbridge is concerned. And I'm more than willing to take any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Any questions? Mr. Wilcox?
I'm sorry, I think Dr. Joyner had his hand up first.
Yeah, I just know Dr. Joyner, Mr. Golden, and then Mr. Wilcox.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to express my highest level of confidence in Ms. Tiffany Jackson and our business office. Ms. Jackson is one of the most knowledgeable special educators in the country. I know because I've been all over the country, seen them all. She has high level ethics. She thinks on her feet. And I think that Dr. Benitez will say amen to the fact that she works so hard to make sure our policies are in line, and she has a great talent for detail. I, for one, I'm pleased that we have her working for us and looking out for our best interests.
Thank you.
Joyner. Mr. Golden?
Thank you, Madam President. My comments don't reflect on anybody's performance here, so let's be clear about that. I worked with Ms. Jackson for many years and never questioned her ability to be able to get the job done. What's frustrating to me about this whole process is that I didn't, and I don't know if other board members did, but I didn't hear about this until it became public. Until some of our representatives went to Woodbridge, spoke at their meeting, and then it became news. And that's frustrating to me because these are our kids and we're responsible ultimately for education in New Haven. And we should have been briefed long before we had representatives from this district go to a Woodbridge meeting. And quite frankly, it wasn't, I've watched the meeting, it wasn't a pretty sight. It was combative on both ends. Instead of having a discussion between us and the board, it was they gave our staff people and our mayor 3 minutes to make presentations. So there was already something going on there that I'm certainly not aware of. But what's frustrating to me is at the end of this process, it's our children that lose out on the opportunity to participate in this open choice program. And we should have found a way to resolve this outside of a public spat at a adjoining school district board meeting. And the board certainly should have been briefed and had some input as to how to approach this. And at that meeting, we were represented by people that we did not inform to represent us. The mayor was there. I assume he was there as the mayor of the city of New Haven, but he was seen as a representative of the Board of Education, and he's not. The president of the board is the representative. The vice president is the representative. Our secretary is the representatives, and we didn't have a conversation amongst ourselves as to how we as a board should have been represented at that meeting. And it is frustrating, it was embarrassing to me to see that happen after watching the tape of that meeting. And then to hear the response afterwards because of what we said and how we approached it, it was below what this board should have, the relationship that we should have had with that board. So I hope that this gets resolved as quickly as possible, behind the scenes as much as possible, and at the end of the day, that our kids have the opportunity to participate in that program as well as other open choice programs in the state. Now, I've seen this. I've seen Tiffany come to us plenty of times during negotiations with different charters and so on around special ed costs. She's always kept us updated, and because, you know, sometimes those charters reach out to us behind the scenes and say, hey, you know, why is this happening to us? And Tiffany's always, she's always been very good in negotiating that, even though those charters have never, ever been completely happy. But this burst out into the public, it hurt to see that happen. Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Golson, can I just respond to that, just because there's a couple of other pieces that I probably missed in my summary. So that would have been exactly what you're talking about, and really doing some of these things behind the scenes and closed doors. That's exactly what we have been doing prior to this point. As I mentioned to you before, over the last couple of years, there's been 2 different superintendents. So even myself, Dr. Tracy, along with Ms. Hannon, we met with the superintendent, the previous superintendent, finance person, and special education director behind the scenes. That's always been what we've been doing. Where this has gone awry is that Woodbridge publicly, we didn't get the opportunity because that meeting didn't happen. There was public commentary that had already been out there prior to us even going to Woodbridge. So I just wanted to share that piece, because that may be a piece that we don't know. We've always worked, trying to work superintendent to superintendent, behind the scenes, trying to do those pieces. I think the difference with this is that there was yet again another new superintendent. The other one was only there 18 months, and another superintendent who came out with public commentary that got out there in a few different arenas where there had not even been the sharing of information going back with New Haven Public Schools. I just wanted to just share some of that piece prior to, and then we met with them too.
But my main point was that this board should have been updated before.
Sure, I understand.
Before that public meeting happened.
Sure.
And when I said that to the superintendent, her response to me was, no, that's not your business, it's our business.
Sure.
It's my business. And that is not correct. That is board business. That is City of New Haven students who we as a board are responsible for.
Right.
And we should have had some input as to what our response was going to be at that meeting. Thank you.
Right. The only other last thing I will say, I forgot to say this before, is that where we're talking about being, having some resolve or resolving this, we since met with Woodbridge, and I think we've agreed to disagree. As I mentioned before, there's been a changing of the guards, if you will, across the state, across many folks who've been dealing with open choice. I've been doing this since 2007. And I don't know if we're going to come to an agreement of the interpretation of the legislation. So I just want to be honest in saying that. We did have these conversations, and we'll see, what's happening next. But I just wanted to make sure that I was open, honest, and transparent about that.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson, Mr. Bolton, Mr. Wilcox, and then Mayor Elicker.
Thank you. The one thing I wanted to pick up on here is something that we've heard a lot in finance and operations, and which has been mentioned here, is that this is a process that we do go through with all the districts. And I've always appreciated how Ms. Jackson is looking out for the interests of the school districts and negotiating with these other school districts, like the charters and so on, where some of our students go, and making sure that there's some equity in terms of the amount of money that we're sending them for the students, so they can get the services that they deserve, that it also matches up with the level of services that we're able to provide our students. And so I think that that's a important thing. Also in that, I don't know if it's been mentioned here, that it sounds like this is 2 kindergarten slots. So this isn't taking away from students that we have from New Haven that are currently in the Woodbridge School District. It's just, they're saying at this point, they're not going to take 2 more in a kindergarten and then evaluate. So hopefully this can get worked out and communication can happen. And so that's, I think it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for students to not be able to have the school choice that they that they're looking for. I also think it's unfortunate for Woodbridge not to have some great New Haven kids coming to the school like they've been having. And so it's a loss all around, and hopefully that superintendent and ours and we'll be able to, and through Ms. Jackson, we'll be able to come to some agreements moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Mayor Elicker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So agree with Mr. Goldson that this should have been worked out not in the public eye. And if the adults have a disagreement on spending, the Woodbridge should have reached out to us and discussed that. Instead, they decided to have a public conversation with themselves at a board meeting and decide at that board meeting to end the offering of these 2 slots to New Haven Public School students. And they also, in my view, said disparaging remarks about our schools, that we don't pay our bills, that they insinuated we send students to Woodbridge that are of special needs in order to save costs. And I'm quite proud that we went to correct the record at their Board of Education meeting. They sent a letter to me, and I felt it was important as mayor of the city to respond to that. At no time, Mr. Goldson, as Mr. Goldson referenced, did I say I represented the Board of Education. I'm the mayor of the city. I represented the city and responded to their letter to me. We went, corrected the record, and I think called a spade, and we're very direct in our comments, and we're respectful in our comments, in my view, but accurate in our comments, in my view. So I'm quite proud of how we responded, and I would do it again.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. I hope that I didn't suggest that the mayor said he was representing the Board of Education. I said it appeared as though he was representing the Board of Education because there wasn't any other Board of Education member there representing the board, quite frankly. And I didn't even know about it until after it had happened. As a board member, I should have been aware that we were having a public fight with an adjoining school district, a school district that, by the way, is a quarter of a mile from my home. You know, I mean, that's how close we border that school district. And it's frustrating. And I think that if any other mayor, the previous mayor or the mayor before that, had gone to another district representing this school district, any one of us would have had a problem with that. This is not a personal attack on Mayor Elicker or any of our school representatives or school administrators that were at that meeting. But if this board is going to have a public fight with another board, this board should be aware of that fight before it's happening. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Mayor Elicker?
This is not a fight. I think that we need to be clear about that. We are not fighting with our neighbors. We are advocating for our students, and we are correcting incorrect statements that were made.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. Dr. Tracy?
Thank you, Madam President. Let me say this, that we have always for years worked things out behind the scenes with charter schools, with Woodbridge or any other school system. We work behind the scenes, superintendent, CFO, along with their business individuals and these are things we work through behind the scenes, and none of these have ever risen to the level of a board meeting. And so when they brought it to the level of a board meeting, I reached out and I sent some information to the board about what was happening. And so when I said this is not that's not a board matter, that's what I meant, because these are things we always work out behind the scenes and get the matters worked on in an amicable way, district to district or charter school to the system itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. With all due respect to our great mayor, I know a fight when I see one. And I watched that board meeting, and that was a fight. And we lost 2 slots to a adjoining school district, and that seems to me to be a losing fight on our end, because our kids are the ones that don't benefit from having those slots available. So it seems to me that we were in a fight. I watched it. Seems to me that we probably lost that fight because we haven't gotten those slots back. And if we're going to have a public fight where we lose slots for our students in the public, and again, we as a board should be aware that that fight is happening and have some input as to how to approach it. That's all I'm saying. Thank you, Madam President. And I'll let you have the last word, Mayor. I won't respond.
We know how that goes, Mr. Goldson. It depends on what I say, I presume, but yeah, let's not frame this as there are 2 equal parties that are having a tit for tat argument here. This is about Woodbridge School District having unilaterally decided to discontinue offering 2, and unless they change their mind next year, more students for the open choice seats. They are turning their back on the open choice program without trying to find a pathway to work out what they view as a disagreement and what we view quite strongly as a fair payment for their services. They are focusing, as they said themselves, on a business decision that we believe we disagree with at the expense of our students. And I think to insinuate at all that any New Haven Public School staff has lost the fight and we have somehow caused the loss of those 2 slots for our New Haven Public School students is inaccurate and really unfair to the people that are working very, very hard to advocate for our students.
Okay.
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 Thank you.
Dr. Tracy?
Okay, and I'll move on now that that part is out of the way.
Mhm.
I am going to bring on 2 principals at this time. Ms. Nicole Brown, Mr. Sean True, to come on and share with them, like we did last time, great things that are happening in their schools, what make their schools so special. I'll first call on Ms. Nicole Brown, and that will be followed by Mr. Sean True. Dr. White, please bring those folks over.
We're in.
Michelle. Michelle is a new principal at Hill Central.
Oh,
Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, thank you very much, Dr. Tracy and the board. I'm really excited about sharing what we're doing at Hill Central. Do we have the presentation, Dr. White?
I can go to it. You can also share if you prefer.
The board members have it in their packet, Michelle.
And I'll pull it up.
Thank you. I'll start talking while you're pulling it up, Dr. White. I know we have 5 to 7 minutes and I set my timer. So I have a lot to say about Hill Central, so I really could go on for hours. I've been there for 10 years, over my 25 years in New Haven Public Schools, but Hill Central is a really special place. And one piece of feedback that we get consistently from anyone who visits our school is that the place feels good. And we believe really strongly that if a school feels good and people want to be there, then conditions will be in place for learning. So we have a vision just for our school culture and climate, which is what we're going to talk about today. And our vision is that at Hill Central, we foster positive relationships with all stakeholders to maintain a joyful, high-achieving school environment. So that is our vision, just to make sure that the building runs well and feels really good. I also brought 2 teachers with me today. I have an unbelievable staff in that building, and I'm blessed every day to work with them. So I have Miss Paola Gomes and Mrs. Tracy Cunningham that are going to share. Oh, 1 minute, your turn.
Hi. So what makes Hill Central special for our students? I've been at Hill Central probably now for close to 20 years, and grew up in the neighborhood, went to the school, seen the good and bad and the ugly, and, and going through COVID, trying to work our way back to being a strength academically. And so we added a couple of things the last 4 to 5 years to kind of like make the students want to be there, want to feel encouraged. So every morning, Ms. Brown says, you make sure you get out there, and we have people who greet the students in the front of the building, parents, community members, every morning. It's good morning, how are you? Have a great day. Some of the kids love it. Some of the older kids that I work with, they're like, oh my God, she got so much energy. She's so happy. But we do that every morning. We've had a lot of different like cultural enrichment celebrations that we added this year in our building. We have a team of teachers who focus in on the social emotional, who go throughout the school providing different like activities and giving out information to students and to teachers. Every day with our morning announcements, we have students come up and they either read poetry, they read the morning announcements, and they even do a mindfulness activity with the students. In terms of our academic days, coming up is our Pi Day, which is exciting. We have teachers who collaborate together to have like a poetry slam for the kids. And we have publishing parties in the classrooms, which our administrators and our leadership team try to engage in and be part of. One more thing I'd like to add was that we had an amazing activity this year with what we call it, it was like I'll probably talk about it on my next slide. So I'm just going to save that for later. But we also have a teacher and student like activity where we invite the whole school in, as many classrooms as possible, and have the kids come in. We have teacher games, kids games. So we try to keep the energy going and drum up a lot of excitement.
Thank you. So my slide, unfortunately, I cannot share my screen. There's something wrong with my
Just go ahead
computer.
and speak about it. Yeah.
Okay. The pictures were really nice. I wish you could have seen the pictures, but they're in your handout. So we have a lot of things that make Hill Central special for our staff. We do book clubs, both professional and we read a YA novel every summer. And then we usually come to my house and we do a pool party book club. So that's something that's really fun for our kids. For our teachers, and staff. We have a cultural enrichment committee, which is run by staff and students participate in that. We also have been doing some paraprofessional training every month because we feel it's important to make sure that all stakeholders know their value and receive the training that they so desperately need, especially with the times being as they are. We've been training paras in restorative practices and social and emotional learning, which has been great. I just wanted to point out, because I heard it in public comment, that we met with our substitute teachers in our school and we actually went through the handbook with them. So I just wanted to address that because that is something that we feel is important. Another great thing we've been doing is yoga and mindfulness. We have a teacher who's really good at that, and he's been bringing that into our staff meetings and site-based PD. We try to do crafts with our teachers and give them treats. We really believe that happy people, like happy teachers, happy paras, happy cafeteria friends, all of those stakeholders, if they're happy, the kids will be happy. And if kids are happy, they're going to want to come to school. So we're really trying to make sure that we're including everyone who works in the school system, from the bus drivers to the administrators and every single stakeholder group, that they have a voice and a value. We've got a sunshine club, a social committee. So we like to do some things together. Makes us feel like a family. And my favorite thing that we've been doing lately is we do little radio style contests in the morning. So related to our cultural enrichment, whatever our focus is. So this month it happens to be Women's History Month. So we'll put on a song by a famous woman, and the teachers have to call in, and caller 5 gets a prize. So that's been really, really fun. So we've been doing those kinds of things, just wanting to make sure that staff feels special. All right, I'm going to turn this over to whomever's next.
All right. Hi. So what makes Hill Central special for families in the community? Since COVID, we've been able to bring back more large group activities and community events. This year, we had a walkathon at the beginning of the year, which was great. We invited Hill House over, the band over, and we did a walk down our street, down from Spring Street to the down to Washington Avenue Park, which was great. A lot of community people from the community came out, parents kind of walked along with us. It was kind of like a way to get everybody together and kind of prep them for the school year. We also had something called the Harvest Night. And it was one of the first time we had something of that sort in our building. And that activity filled the cafeteria up. We did different types of harvest activities. Lots of teachers came out, I have to say, because sometimes it's hard to get teachers out after a certain time, but it was nice to see the teachers that came out, the parents and the families, and some community people came in to check out what was going on in the building. And of course, we do our literacy and our math nights or activities. We also have a biliteracy activity. We have a lot more students who come in who are multi-language this year. So we've been engaging Iris as part of our support for the newcomer families. And that's just a few things that we've been doing, but it's been great this year, trying to get all that together.
Hi, good evening. I'll present on the student glows. There's lots of great things happening at Hill Central for our students. But most of all, in the slide, you'll see some of the highlights. Our kindergarten students, 90%, are on track to meet their growth target. That's a great celebration. Our first grade PSF, 88% on track. Then I would like to go to third grade biliteracy intervention. 100% of the students have mastered 2 literacy domains in English. It's a great celebration. Also, we have fifth grade. A group of tier 2 intervention students exited to tier 1. And our 7th grade attendance, that is a big one. It's a celebration. 79% of our students are attending regularly in comparison to our district average of 60%. And our 8th grade students are rocking the RI. 7 of the students scored proficiency above grade level.
Thank you. My next slide was just about staff glows. It's hard to quantify sometimes, some of the things that we're talking about, the school feels good, this and that. The picture is actually us. Sometimes we'll bring a little cart around to the classrooms just to kind of bring morale up. If we feel like things are down, we try to do things like that. And I feel like this data actually really means a lot. So if you look at this graph, or this chart rather, you'll see that 17 of our staff currently have been at Hill Central for 10 years or more. And if you combine that with the staff who've been there 4 and up, it's really a nice number. So we're really proud that teachers who work at Hill Central and staff that work at Hill Central stay there. That says a lot about what's going on there. And the bottom bullet talks about staff who've returned. So we've had 9 staff members that have worked at Hill Central that have left for various reasons. Sometimes it was their choice. Their position may have been cut. 9 staff members who currently work at Hill Central worked there before and came back. So we feel like that's a real celebration and something that we need to showcase.
And about our family engagement, that's one of our big glows too, establishing and growing an active PTO, maintaining those communication lines open with the parents, whether it be website, social media, telephone calls. We have an all-school parent contact log, so everybody is aware of our communication with the families. Also planning those whole school and classroom events, bringing our families back, having them in the classroom, supporting their children as learners, and providing the family supports through our Family Resource Center, our school-based health clinic, and making sure that everybody is basically looped in and providing the students what they need to be successful.
So like we mentioned, it's really hard to quantify sometimes when you're talking about your vision, your culture and climate. The qualitative data is great, but we definitely see an impact on the students, that we see more students are growing now than they have in the last couple of years. So we're really looking forward to seeing more high achieving students at Hill Central. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nicole. Thank you and your staff for taking the time to put this presentation together and to present this. Thank you for the great things happening at Hill Central. Now we move on to Mr. Sean True.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Education and Dr. Tracy. Just want to first start off, Nicole, great job with your presentation and all the great things happening over at Hill Central. You and your team do a great job. So I am going to see if I can try to share, hopefully. Let me try that now. Okay, so I'm going to pull up first. Can everyone see it, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to first pull up our one pager over at Career. So good evening. So we're at Hill Regional Career High School. The vision of a graduate is such that a student who graduates from Hill Regional Career High School will be able to do the following: access and analyze a variety of sources of information, communicate clearly and listen actively, fulfill his or her civic duty to be a leader within his or her own community, think critically and solve problems, be resilient and persistent, and develop career readiness skills through authentic experiences. Some of the things that we focus on through our strategic objectives are to build academic standards of student practice and to develop foundational skills to lead college career and life readiness. Build student social and emotional skills school-wide in order to foster students' independence and maintain a positive learning environment. Some of the pathways for which our magnet school exists, it's through the business and technology and through that health and sciences. And these are just a snapshot of some of the courses that we offer through our magnet pathways with the business and technology and through health and sciences. Our academic expectations, we hope students will progress towards competency in 21st century skills, which include problem solving and critical thinking skills, accessing and analyzing information, communication, collaboration, creativity, innovation, initiative, self-direction and accountability, and citizenship and responsibility. What makes Hill Regional Career High School, some of the things that make us unique are over 10 advanced placement courses, our block scheduling, our 29 credits to graduate, integrated advisory program, hands-on projects, senior capstone projects, and our college and career center. So now I'm going to turn your attention now to the brief PowerPoint that our team created at Career. So again, I'm sure the principal. I have a great leadership team, which includes Stephen Ciarci, our assistant principal, Alice Coleman, assistant principal, Dr. Jonathan Berryman, our administrative intern, and Dr. Haifa Abdul Jalil, our magnet resource coach. Some of the things that we focus in, oops, I lost the presentation. Let me try that again.
No, I'm going to switch over and show it from mine
Okay.
so it's a larger,
Okay.
just so we want to move forward.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Doc. So some of the things that we focused in on at Career in particular now is the school, the climate and culture of the building. But within our mission statement at Career, as I mentioned earlier in our one pager, we prepare all students to be thoughtful, productive, and contributing members of our community. And the principles of what we go by is our Panther Pride, which is a preparedness, the respect, integrity, the discipline, and the excellence here. So we're very proud of that synonym or what we go by that drives our everyday at Career High School. If we could do the next slide, Doc, please. Okay, so some of these, an overview of Hill Regional Career High School. As I mentioned, it's an interdistrict magnet school with our magnet themes, the two pathways, the health and sciences and the business and technology. These are some of the notable pathway courses within the health and science: environmental science, anatomy and physiology, AP chemistry, honors physics, forensic science, physics, medical careers, health career pathways 1 and 2, medical Spanish, our health law, certified nursing assistance program, our CNA program, our STEMS career. And then on the other side of it, the business and technology, our computer applications, business concepts and career, business ethics, accounting 1 and 2, digital media, international business, marketing 1 and 2, personal finance, business law, hospitality and tourism, fashion and merchandising, and business Spanish. Some of our notable accomplishments: our 5-time Magnet School of America Merit Award winners, which currently we've received that distinction again this year. Our robotics competitive awards, we have a great robotics team. State competitions 1st and 2nd place winners, and also our international business plans competition winners, just to name a few of our notable accomplishments at Hill Regional Career High School. These are just some photos on the health career pathways, our professional days. To the left here, you see our simulation lab with our health and career pathway students. And to the right, where is our HOSA club, again, with our health career pathway students. They do wonderful things here in our school, led by Mr. Dario, our teacher, who's been very instrumental in getting our students to where they need to be. So we're very fortunate. Our next slide will then crosses over to our business professionals. Here they work on various skills within the business field to prepare them for pathways within the business field, whether it be through the DECA or whether it be through business plans, interviewing skills and such. So they do a tremendous job, as well as our teachers within the business department as well. Our next slide. So we're academically successful. So in 2022, our graduation rate, it was roughly 92%. We currently have 10 AP courses. I also may add that we were selected as a pilot school to participate in having an AP African American studies, so which we're very happy and excited about. 5 college courses available, independent studies. We do have our college partnerships, some with Yale, Quinnipiac, Southern Connecticut State, and Gateway, just to name a few. So we have a lot of great things going on, and certainly within the slides, it shows what's at the core, which is most important with instruction, but our students, they're at the core of our success at school. Our next slide. So we are diverse. Our enrollment's currently 643 students, 46% are Hispanic, 41% African American, 7% white, 3% Asian, and 2% 2 or more races. And some of the pictures are here from this year, our many celebrations through our Black History celebration, our multicultural celebrations, our students becoming involved in our student council, student-led government conferences. And also we have a wonderful staff, dedicated teachers, administrative team, families, and students who really have come together and made this year so very exciting. In particular, coming out of a pandemic, it feels really good to try to get back to the normalcy here. So we're really, really excited about that. And our next slide, please. And so we are engaged within our community. That's part of our climate and culture, and you'll recognize some faces here through various programs and guest speakers and celebrations that we've had at our school that we haven't had in the past 3 years. So our whole learning community is very excited to bring this back to Hill Regional Career High School. You feel the energy within the building with the teachers, the staff, the students, and our administrative team and our community members. So it's really exciting to see that excitement and feel that excitement and give opportunities for our entire learning community to be successful. Our next slide. And so we are newsworthy. So some of our, our activities and things that have made local news, whether it be through Hispanic Heritage, our celebration, or whether it be great things happening within the classroom, or teachers teaching within various units within the classroom, or whether it be talking about our STEM and getting our students involved within our various sciences throughout Hill Regional Career High School. So we certainly are proud of our students, proud of our staff, and want to share all the great things that are happening at Hill Regional Career High School. And finally, it takes a village, it takes a family. So we are family, and the family includes our staff, our students, our various community partners, and most importantly, it centers around our students and the great things that are happening. So we'd like to celebrate all and certainly coming together and really showing our Panther pride, if you will. So that is our presentation for this evening. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. True, for presenting what's going on in Career High School. And again, thank you, Ms. Nicole Brown, for what's going on at Hill Central. Great things are happening in all of our schools in New Haven. And as I did last time, I'm inviting all board members and community members who would like to go in and see, just set an appointment to see what is happening on the ground. That's the best way to know what's going on, by actually going in and see for yourself what is going on in our New Haven Public Schools. So thanks again for taking this time to present to my board. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Thank you, Ms. Nicole Brown, and also Mr. True. I'm slightly partial to career as a graduate myself, so it's nice to see all the grades happening. Thank you. Mr. Goldson and then Dr. Benitez.
Thank you, Madam President. I hope when they do a presentation at Hill House, they'll have my picture all over the document. I want to thank the Dr. Tracy for again inviting these school voices, these principal voices to the meeting. I got to let you know you guys are missing out. These meetings should be public. You should be here at the Federation of Teachers headquarters. There's a room full of people who were excited to see their colleagues doing this kind of work, and there were fingers that were snapping, and there were comments and so on. We got to get back to making these meetings public so these people could engage with each other. I want to again thank you for this presentation. I look forward to the future seeing these also. And by the way, I want to thank the Federation of Teachers. Pizza's a little cold, but the popcorn was hot, and I've been enjoying my stay here. Thank you.
Dr. Joyner? Thank you, Mr. Goldson.
Yeah, very familiar with both schools, and I want to make a statement about our public school system. I had a neighbor that moved in from Nashville. He was in a magnet school, and he's at Hill House now. He'll be going to Dartmouth, and he wouldn't be going to Dartmouth had he not come to New Haven and started attending Hill House and started taking college classes. Everybody that I know that comes into town think that we have the most resource-rich school district in the state. We have programs for college students. You can start taking college classes as a sophomore. You have music and art programs. There are so many offerings for students who will come to school, pay attention, and act respectfully. We also have a city that reflects our country. It's one of the most diverse cities in the country. And we try to help people. We don't counsel people. We don't try to hide history in our classrooms. We don't do any of that. In Hill Central a few years ago, the history teacher created a classroom that looked like the Cotton Club. And I wish you could have seen it. At Hill Central, my Sacred Heart students used to come there and do Black history musical programs. This was when Dr. Williams was there. Actually, it was after Dr. Williams. And of course, Sean True, I used to bring students to his school when he was at Ross Woodward. We have a phenomenal school system. If our ancestors were to come back today and see the resources that our kids have, they would be astounded. And since Sean, careers of Panthers, you can rename it Wakanda High School. And that's a probably better name than career. I rest my case.
Thank you, Dr.
And as I said, again, folks need to go into our schools. Of course, the pandemic, we had to keep folks out, but now we're open up. Folks need to see what's going on in New Haven Public School. There's been some side talk that we don't have resources for our students. That is not true. Ms. Hannons happened to have led a group of elders into couple of our schools to see what's going on in the bilingual classrooms, and they were very pleased with what they see happening. So people will talk and they'll discredit our school system, but I'll stand up for it until my last day, and even beyond that we have a great school system with great staff members doing the best they can, being committed to the work of educating our students. And so we continue to thrive, we continue to work and continue to reach for the stars. And I know better days are ahead of us.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. We have the budget proposal. Ms.
Miss Hannans will just give us some high leverage points on the budget proposal for 2023, 2024. It's not it's in draft form because we're waiting to see what the alders will give to the mayor for the mayor's request of $8 million, whether or not we're going to get that. And then towards the end, we'll present a final balanced budget to this board. So Ms. Hannans, okay, she's over there in the corner, is going to present. You already have it in your packet, so she's going to give some very high leverage pieces from the budget proposal tonight.
And I just want to say too, it's great to see all of those things that are happening in our schools. And then you look at this poor dismal budget that I have to put together. So it's like, okay, I'm coming up the rear here. But I want to start out and I'm sorry. Good evening, President Revere and members of the board, Mayor Elicker. But what I'm going to present to you tonight, which is in your packet, is to share the proposed general fund budget. As we share this budget, some of the slides that are in that packet talk about, of course, our district strategic plan for 2024, and it speaks to the core values, the mission, and the vision of the district. Also in this package, we have the objectives, the key trends, the student population, how are our schools funded, a sample of the different funding streams, and then we go into the proposed budget. We also have the estimated expenditures, a couple of graphs. Unfortunately, I don't have any nice pictures. I just have a few of them. And then we also have the budget calendar and our final thoughts. So with that, I'm just going to go into the presentation itself. So on page 2 of the slide, it just talks about our core values that we put in front of every presentation that we have. And that, that talks about our mission, our high expectations, and our vision. And also, in my role, we're trying to make sure that we have equitable opportunities and a budget that presents the academic core plus everything else that goes into putting a budget together. I must say too, this year what we did was the team met with every single principal in the district. And while we know that, we have money in some of the grants, we just wanted to get a feel of what were the problems at each school. And when we were putting the budget, we were saying, okay, fine, is there anything that we can do with the budget? Unfortunately, because we're so underfunded, there wasn't much we could do, but I'll talk about some of the areas that we thought we could do something with that. On page 4, I'm sorry, it just talks about the objectives of our budget. And again, like I said, we shared our budget. Dr. Tracy mentioned earlier, we did share our budget process with the community. And it was an informal meeting whereby, people would offer their input as to what they thought that we needed in the budget. And it was, I have to say, it was a good meeting for the folks that did come. They did ask questions, and hopefully we were able to answer their questions where they felt comfortable. The goal of it really was, though, to show where we are, what it's costing us, and how we needed the folks to support us to at least give us, if not more than what the mayor put aside, a few dollars more, but just not to cut us at all. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, this here is the historical enrollment. And as you can see, since 2016, the enrollment has been going down. And I did check with Markwell in our magnet office, and some of the issues, he outlined some of the issues that were causing that decline. I'm concerned though, because if some of your grants, are based on free and reduced lunch and all the other things. So what I'm concerned about is with the continued decline in enrollment, what will our budget look like, or basically what will our grants look like? The next slide, okay. On page 6, it just basically shows our education cost share, ECS and Alliance funding since 2013, I think it is. Yeah, 12. And what we're showing is that our funding across the board has been stable. And if we get any increases, they usually put it in the Alliance District grant, not so much in the other dollars. Okay. The next slide, please. This slide here shows the key trends in the change in grant funds. And I wanted to show this slide to show the importance of how we rely on outside grants to cover the district. And now you can see where the decline is starting to show in the grant section, because we were up to 21-22. And we were shown, over $200 million we were getting just in grants because we got the ESSER and the ARP ESSER year, and that was multi-year funds. We've, developed some robust programs to spend that money, but we tried not to spend it all up front because, as you can see, in 22-23, which is this fiscal year, the number is starting to go down. The reason for that number going down, of course, is because we started spending that money. So it's like you have this pot of money now that you're actually spending it, you're putting programs in. So it's like an account that's not being, subsidized anymore. So of course, that number you're going to see going down. As you see in the earlier years, 17, 18, 18, 19, we were, running about $84 million, $90 million. I think since in my term, the highest we've ever gotten maybe is maybe $100 million. So it should be of concern to all of us now because, okay, fine, we are starting to see the decline in the available funds. What are we going to, how are we going to alleviate this problem? And on page 8, it just talks about the schools. I did get a picture in there. And we have 41 schools, and we have 19,150 students. Now, keep in mind, that's as of the October enrollment. So we have the 30 pre-K programs, the 9 high schools, they have the alternative high school, and then we have 1 adult education center. Next slide. Okay, and then this here is just, again, is of October enrollment, and then you see where I had the 19,150 students. And then it just shows you all the different languages that our students speak and what the percentage is of those students. And it shows also down where it says 87% of our New Haven residents, and then we have 13%, 13% of non-residents, which are the suburban students. And then it just tells you the racial background of each. Okay, this is one of the pie charts, and it just shows you in pie chart form the same information that I just provided to you, but it's just so, like, some people are visual and they want to see it this way, and others, so I just did it both ways. Okay. And then this is the budget itself. And I'd like to keep this in front of you because of the fact that, as you can see, the 142.7, which is a 39%, and then the this year of the 52.6%, where with the that's the local contribution. And then you could see all of the other numbers, the percentages here. These are the outside percentages, like the grants that we depend on to make this budget work. And as you can see, just about almost half, more than half, I think it came to like 59%, is based on outside sources of funding. Next slide. And then this here is just the funding streams can be very different. And all this chart does is show you a sampling of the schools, and it shows you the residents, and you could see with how many schools get Title I dollars. We have the federal magnets program, which is of course going away at the end of this fiscal year. Now, this is the federal magnet program. This is not the interdistrict. And so I just wanted to show that to give you a feel of some of the grants that are coming into the district. And you can see where some of the schools are heavily reliant on the Title I dollars. Next slide. Okay. Now into the budget itself. Last fiscal year, we had requested $200 million, and we ended up getting approved for $195 million. So you can see there was a difference of $4.8 million for last fiscal year. For this fiscal year 22-23, you could see we have the 195.2, and then our request is $207 million for a difference of 11.8, with the percentage increase of 6.5%. Okay, and here is if you can see the here you could see the actual approved budget, and then what we're doing, the data that we put in without the adjustments, and then the actual requests, which is the 2071931. And so of course there's a difference of $11.8 million that we'll be looking for. If we get the budget approved at the 207, we'll still be short the 11.8. I mean, that's a change in the budget. I think so far, from what I understand, the mayor's budget is coming in at 8, so that would probably leave us about $3 million if it's not changed, that we would have to then look for, which was a little lower than what we had to do last year. Now, okay, and then this again is the general fund estimated expenditures in pie graph form to give you a visual of where where the percentages are. You could see that the large part, we're basically running 55% of our budget is based on personnel. And then our next largest would be our transportation, and then supplies and materials, 26, 28 instruction. Okay. Yep. Okay, so some of our notable cost drivers, which I just went over, is we have 83% of the general fund costs are in personnel. Our out of district tuition is our next biggest cost driver, and then our transportation. All of our full-time staff are basically collective bargaining agreements, and now it seems like all of our bargaining contracts are coming due, and so we still have the paraprofessionals that are still outstanding, so we put a placeholder there. And then also we have, I think, 287, which is the custodians, and then there are 2 other unions, which are 884 and 3144, which are combined unions with the city, so we have no control over what those percentage increases will be. Let's see. And all other, so we put a 3% placeholder for next year for that. And then the transportation contract renewal, I said we're anticipated that may go up by 12%. And then also we would have the price escalation is spelled out in our long-term agreements and contracts, our building maintenance, and our tuition costs. We, don't have right now, I think, and then like what's going on with now where people were coming in more. So we, that's going to be a major change as well. Next slide. Okay. So some of the proposed new items in this package, and one is a labor, we added a labor attorney. And that was basically to handle all of our labor negotiations, our grievances, and other labor matters. And the reason for this is we're trying to reduce our heavy reliance on outside attorneys. Also, with the changes that we're looking at with the contracts and the BOSHI system and things like that, and a lot of the questions that come up at our F&O meetings around contracts and agreements. We're trying to get somebody that would just be, we had one years ago, and we're looking at putting that person back on the Board of Ed side so that person could be responsible for, like, if something's coming through, they can look up, whether it should go through the board, the 20%, the 25%, and all the different things that will go in these purchase orders and agreements. I think that would really help us as well as the board so that, you know, when we come to you with an item, everything has already been vetted and, you know, things will go much smoother. We're also in need of a bilingual examiner, and that is a state requirement. And this is for all of the students. And Pedro did explain that to me. And unfortunately, I left that on my desk at work. But that is really needed. In the past, we were able to utilize that position in a grant. We've been able to get away with that. But now what's happening is that because the grant, I think, is only like maybe $300,000, the state is saying, well, wait a minute, these funds should be used, you know, to provide the multi-learners with their services. And we can't continue to, as the staff, we can't continue to use that money to cover our staff. And that should be something that they said that the district should be paying for totally. And, you know, just keep in mind when we were doing the bilingual examiner on the grant side, in addition to that $60,000, we have to pay 40%, well, it comes to 47% by the time you take out the FICA and the workers' comp and the healthcare costs. So, you know, that's really draining from the program. And we knew it was coming. So we said, okay, fine, we need to identify that in the budget. The other items, the grade 6 science curriculum, we have funds for that. The literacy curriculum, there's money budgeted for that. And then the grade 6, 8 math curriculum and professional development, all of that is budgeted. The licensing costs for the IT updates, I know Gilda had mentioned this before, and I think the bulk of the money, this is the difference that is not coming from the E-rate. And then, you know, we identified the need for the EL classroom teachers. So we said, you know, we can probably get away with five, an increase of 5. And then we were also going to increase the special ed teachers by the same 5. And so that comes to $9.2 million. The bulk of it will be coming from grants and just the items, the labor attorney, the deputy purchasing agent, and probably the teachers will be coming. We'll have to work that into the budget as well. Let's see. The next page. Okay, and then this last page here is just talking about the budget timelines, and I've showed you what we've done thus far. We finished the community forum last week, so now we're at the point where we're bringing it to the board. It's been in your packets, but we're bringing it to the board now because we're at the point where we're getting ready to. This is the draft, and it is what it is at this point. So that's 2 pages. We're going to our hearing is scheduled for March 30th. So actually, I think we're a little bit ahead of ourselves because today is, I think, only the 13th that we're bringing it to your attention. So, you know, if you have any changes or any recommendations, then we would do another final, and that would come back again on the 27th if necessary, but keeping in mind that we're going to the Board of Aldermen on March the 30th. So our final adoption of the budget is when we get the numbers from the Board of Education, the Board of Alders, then we would actually present a final recommended budget. And then finally, what we don't know, and again, we're talking about, you know, grant funding and, you know, what any increases, again, must go through the Alliance grant. If we have any further reductions in federal and state funding, and again, the only reductions that I foresee at this point in time would be the ESSER grant going away. I think it sunsets this year. And then the ARP ESSER grant sunsets in 2024. Then also some of the things we don't know is the effect that the decrease will have on the enrollment and revenue. And again, that would be for the grants that are based on the number of kids or the numbers that are on free and reduced lunch. So this would affect things like, say, Title I. But I did read that the the president, they put, I guess, additional funds in their Title I and some of their other entitlement grants for next fiscal year. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and hopefully that it won't have too much effect on us and we will get an increase. The other thing I mentioned earlier would be the tuition costs for the students with disabilities placed in specialized schools, and then costs due to unfunded mandates. We did get the list of all of these things that we're supposed to, that are coming into play fiscal year 2023. So we have to look at that and see where do those dollars come from. And then the last thing would be our aging infrastructure. Our schools are getting older. And so now we're looking at, okay, fine, how do we keep these schools, operational? I was saying we were doing the school quality reviews last week. I was at one, and I'm standing in front of this window by this ledge because I, walked into the classroom and I feel this air. And somebody says, they said, Linda, the window's not open. And so I'm like, oh, gee, so it's again, these buildings are getting older, and when they're getting older, they need to, additional maintenance and upkeep. And I think this may be the last page in my slide. I'm sorry, my eyes. Oh, okay. So my final thoughts. While we received the $37.8 million, that's the grant that is sunsetting. We were able to design robust academic and other improvements for our students. However, the ESSER grant was like the Title I grant, so we couldn't use it to plug holes. So that's why I said they developed robust programs and were able to use these funds to do a lot of things like that you may have seen in the pictures from the school presentations. While we may face a deficit between our expected general fund revenues and expenses for next fiscal year, we would need to look at other sources of funds to close the gap. I know some of our staff wrote letters and they went up to the state and they spoke on our behalf in terms of funding. So I think we need to look at more of those types of things and just look at where else do we think we can, get some dollars. But we need to get dollars that are not so much, how do you say it, that we can actually use to put them where they need to go. Not so much, okay, fine, I'm going to give you this, but now I'm going to tell you what to do with that. And, I fear because we're looking at all of these great programs that are going on in the school system. And as these grants go away, we have to look at and say to ourselves, well, how are we going to sustain these programs? And that is a real concern to me. And in the past I've always worked on the grant side, so it was like saying we were rolling in dough and doing all these things. But now I see that trend again, and we need to look at, well, okay, fine, how do we alleviate the cliff? Or but thank God, I do have to admit that the staff, when we talk about programs that we put in schools that are sustainable. Something that, if it falls apart or the funding goes away, that we will still be able to, run the program because we've purchased the supplies and materials and we, did the PD up front. So we're doing a lot of professional development on these, new implementation of programs that we're putting in. And we just have to, be cognizant of, this money is not always going to be here, and what are we going to do for the future?
Thank you, Ms. Linda, for your presentation.
Right. And also, I just would be remiss if I didn't thank the staff as well. We have a great staff in New Haven, and the assistant supers. I mean, we all pulled together, principals, the directors, everyone pulled together to help HR, to help put this budget together. So, and it was a good feeling to have a team pull together on this. And I must say, I thank all of you for all of your input. Everyone played a part in helping with this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Linda. Thank you.
Mr. Goldson and then Dr. Benitez. Oh, Dr. Benitez and then Mr. Goldson.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna
You're in
protest,
different
I'm
order, okay?
sorry. Listen, so I would like you to go back to slide number 10 and explain it to me because I really couldn't understand it.
Okay, number 10.
If you can show it while you're explaining, that will be great. So I see what you're talking about at the same time.
Okay, so this is the of the 19,150 students. Oh. Is it this one, Dr. Benitez?
Yeah, we serve a diverse population. Yes, I didn't
Right, yeah.
understand that.
So, yeah, so there's 19,500 students. So what this did was it just showed the students that are free and reduced lunch, the students that are two or more races, the English learners language, there are 83% of Spanish speaking, and then it showed the special ed. So it's the same slide as the previous slide, but we just did it in graph form.
Is that just in programs that receive, or is that total enrollment?
Yeah, this is just based on total enrollment.
So see how in this slide, that's why I'm confused. In this slide, you have Hispanics 48%, Black African American 34%, white 10%. But if you go to the next one, the numbers are different.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm confused. What is this 75%?
Yeah, you know what? The 75% should be
free and
free and reduced lunch.
That's what I thought, but I don't see it here.
It should be on the first slide.
Okay, you just clarified it for me.
Okay.
I just didn't see what was that color for 75%. I wanted to make sure I was looking at the right thing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I do want to thank you for presenting the data while you are presenting what you're proposing for the budget. I also want to thank the school principals for their presentations. That was very good. Thank you. That's all.
You're welcome.
At this moment.
Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. I was also confused by that. It looks like you combined two different pie charts together. I guess one is about free and reduced lunch, and the other one was just the races of all of the students who were in the school system. I understand it now. First of all, I want to thank Miss Linda Handens for this presentation. I've been on this board for 7.5 years, almost 7.5 years. We've gone through several finance directors, and this is probably the easiest document to understand that I've seen in a budget presentation for many years. It's straight to the point. It highlights what our needs are, what we got last year compared to what we needed. It just goes to show you how important homegrown talent is. Miss Handens was there all the time, that all of these other guys with these big names and big titles were coming in and presenting her information, not in the same way that she did, made it less understandable. And I really want to thank you, Miss Handens. You're a jewel here, and I appreciate the work that you put in. I have a couple of questions, maybe a couple of comments. In terms of transportation, you suggested that you're looking at a 12% increase in transportation.
Yes.
Why is that?
That was the number that I was provided. They said that they're looking at a 12% increase right now. I guess our contract was 5 years. And so now they're coming in and they're thinking it's going to be a 12% increase. I don't want to speak for Tom, but this is what the numbers that we were given.
I would be shocked if that happened. I hope it doesn't. I mean, every one of those years had 2 or 3 or 4% increases built into it.
Mhm.
And a matter of fact, it went, the last time they rebid it because the transportation contractor decided they were better off rebidding than taking the
Mhm.
last year of their contract. They got something like 8 or 9% increase. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping with this bid out now and more competition out there that this number doesn't hold up. And I also hope that sometime in the future that this board looks at this whole system of busing that we have now with having kids who live across the street from a school being bused across town. You know, I guess the goal was noble, you know, to give kids a choice and to diversify some of our schools. But all it's done is really raise our transportation costs to the highest in the state. And those costs take away from us providing additional tools for our kids to learn. So I'm not going to be on this board, obviously, but I hope the board members who are here now will reconsider this whole system that we have set up now and try to figure out how to make it less harmful to our neighborhoods and less costly to this district. In terms of the budget, it looks like we need 11 million. What we're hearing is the mayor is going to propose somewhere around 8 million, and the board is probably going to cut that because they always do every year. I'm here at the New Haven Federation of Teachers, and we have at least one Board of Aldermen member in the audience, Eli Sabin, who's the chair of education. So I'm assuming that those folks out there are working on him right now. I certainly will when I get back out in that room, and I hope that that we work on those other board members to remind them how important education is to the growth of our city. The other thing that I saw that you had a placeholder of 4% for the paraprofessionals. I hope that is I hope that bodes well. I'd like to see it a little higher. Obviously, I think to be fair, we've been talking for many, many years as a board. I'd like to remind you, we've been talking many, many years about doing right by the paraprofessionals. I think we should continue the trend that I know the lawyer's going to be mad at me. I see some of the board members scowling at me now, but I hope we continue the trend that we have shown with the teachers and the administrators and provide them with a fair and a contract that that respects them and respects what they do in this district. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. In terms of the labor attorney, you know, we talked about bringing an attorney on board, and we said that would reduce our costs. We said that several years ago. Not only has it not reduced our costs, but we actually raised the cost for the attorney also. So, you know, I don't have any real hope that hiring a labor attorney is going to somehow lead to reduced labor, outside labor legal costs for us. I mean, we just approved a contract that started at $80,000 and now is at $517,000. I don't see how this fixes that. I hope for the sake of the school district, it does, but I don't have any real confidence that that will. And that's about it for me again. I just want to reiterate again, because we've been promising for years and years that we're going to do right by the paraprofessionals, and I hope we do. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Dr. Joyner and then Mr. Wilcox.
I'll defer to Mr. Wilcox, and I'll go last. He's in charge of finance, and I think he should get a chance to speak first. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Wilcox.
Well, to clarify, I'm chair of this Finance and Operations Committee, not in charge of finance. So, and thankfully we have very capable hands that are in charge of finance for the district. So do greatly appreciate this presentation. A couple things I'd like to point out. about the presentation. That one is as far as the budget requests go, to increase the budgets to meet the needs that we have for our contractual obligations. The city is just part of the piece of this. And there is a lot of work that's been happening in terms of trying to lobby at the state level in order to increase funding for schools so that our schools in Connecticut are more equitably funded. We're one of the richest states in this entire country with a multi-billion-dollar surplus. And we have great inequities in terms of the amount of funding coming to some districts. Especially, districts like New Haven, where just some of the slides that we were just seeing is the reminder that 16% of our students are multilingual or multi-language learners compared to surrounding districts where they might have 4%, 3%, but yet they're able to spend more per student in terms of funding. And so there has been some work that's been happening at the state, board members, the mayor, members of the administration, members of the unions, and others have been, community members have been testifying at various things at the state level. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Megan Fountain, who is one person who I found very helpful in terms of, I believe she's the education justice organizer for the New Haven Federation of Teachers. So I think that that's been very helpful, the information that she has been pulling together along with the Recovery for All group, which is a group of labor unions, community organizations, faith-based organizations to try to attack that issue in terms of the districts with the most need require more funding to meet that need. Which leads me to the second point I want to make about this is the slide of extras there that Ms. Hannons has that weren't not included in the ask for this year, which is some of the work that the Defining the Gap group has been pulling together in terms of how many, for instance, English language learning teachers do we have? How many do we need based on their expertise and other national standards to meet those needs? And seeing that there's a big gap there. And we've seen some great presentations from at Finance and Operations, at the Alders Education Committee meeting where Assistant Superintendent Keisha Red Hannons and teachers and the administrators that run programs for like English language learning and for special education, for instance, showing what the need really is. And we're going to be seeing in the next couple of weeks a more full report, because it's not just English language learning teachers. We need more school librarians. We need more school psychologists. We need more behavior specialists. We need more math teachers, I'm sure, that the gap is going to be seeing. So those are just some couple things that I think that that should be raised. And that's, again, that the city's just part of this. It's the state responsibility as well. Kids have I believe in Connecticut, a constitutional right to a good education, and the state needs to fund that equitably across the state. And then second is that this is not even touching the need that we have. But fortunately, due to a lot of work on a lot of people's parts, we're going to be able to show this is the need and this is what our students need in order to really learn at their full potential and to really provide support for overworked teachers and for overworked paraprofessionals, overworked administrators, overworked everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Dr. Joyner and then Dr. Tracy.
I'll try to go through this quickly. We are a creature of the state, and the state is always reminding us that education is a creature of the state. So the state should take care of its obligation. And citizens in New Haven should not rest until we get every penny that the state of Connecticut should give us. Linda has done a great job, but she's done a great job with limited staffing. And we ought to own that. She's understaffed, and we lost some really good people, Pat DeMayo being one of them. I know she's back part-time. Human resources understaffed. If you look at other cities that have the large number of employees that we have, their human resource department are much, much larger. And we have to do something about that. The other part that's critically important, having worked in Detroit, I was able to see it happen over the course of 5 years. Poor diverse cities pay more money for non-instructional services, which takes money away from academic services. So we have a very large security department. We have all these other departments. We have more aides than anybody else, and we need every one of them. And the part about losing students, and that's my challenge, that's my problem with charter schools, is because the state seems to have a higher standard for public schools than it does for charter schools. And that's not right. And particularly when you look at billing and all these other issues. And when we lose students, we still have the same capital infrastructure costs. That was a big problem with Detroit. You lose thousands of students, but you have to, if you can't consolidate those buildings, you still have the same cost you would have as if they were there. And Linda has really uncovered that quite well. And this is a problem with a modern American city. We're a city with less than 50% taxable properties, which means that we are subsidizing the suburbs that use our hospitals and any of our tax-free institutions. We're literally subsidizing them. And I'm not going to say anything about programs that we send out there, but we're literally subsidizing, and that's a structural problem. It's a policy problem that has to be addressed at the highest levels. If cities are going to have all these tax-exempt institutions, then the people that grant them that status have the responsibility of putting that money back in the city's coffers. If we had a toll booth surrounding New Haven, and people were trying to come in here to get to the hospitals and all these fine restaurants and universities and so on and so forth, they would say that that's wrong. But it happens every day without a toll booth, and people can come into here. They can use all of the services that New Haven's taxpayers are actually paying for. And they don't have these taxes. So it's an evil, it's an injustice, and we have to organize a movement to deal with it. Again, we are a creature of the state, and New Haven taxpayers should not have the overwhelming burden they have, and we should have some remedy for all of these tax exempt institutions. I believe Mayor Elka could probably speak to that, but I believe that less than 50%, that at least 50% or more, 48% of properties that would otherwise be taxable are in this city. And we want Yale here, we want all these places here, but we need help from the people because we're not the only ones that benefit from them. I think I was able to get that done, and I'm finished, and I yield my commentary.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Dr. Tracy and then Mayor Elicker.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll go back to the question of the need for a labor lawyer. As you know, in the past, we had now Judge Clark, who was our COO and also labor lawyer in one. And he used to do a lot of the work for New Haven Public Schools as he carried out his varied roles. We have to pay so much in cost for litigations and all these different things in the system of over 4,000 workers. HR has to have someone that they can rely on rather than always calling out to another lawyer that is contracted that we have to pay $350 an hour to, and every minute counts in any of those conversations. Having a labor lawyer for ourselves and paying that lawyer a set fee, we don't have to pay those extra minutes to other people or people who charge by the hour. It would be more fiscally responsible for us to have our own lawyer who will deal with all these litigations and all these different grievances that come to HR department. And that's why we're pushing for that whole notion of a labor lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Elicker?
Yeah, just want to add to what Mr. Wilcox said. So in the budget that I submitted to the Board of Alders, there's an $8 million increase. Of that $8 million, $4.5 million of the proposed budget of that $8 million comes from the city, from our general fund, and then 3.5 is an assumed increase in educational cost share funding at the state. You know, our indications are that conversations at the state are going in the right direction for some increase in educational cost share, but that is not a done deal. And there are multiple proposals for increasing education funding at the state level. If we fully accelerated the education cost share formula, we would get that $3.5 million. There's another proposal on the table that would increase our funding by almost $20 million. And a lot of people from the teachers union, other unions testify, really grateful for that. Mr. Wilcox testified, multiple people from Dr. Tracy's team as well testified. But it's helpful for board members to share your thoughts about why this is important with the governor's office and our legislators as well, as the alders, as Mr. Goldson mentioned.
Thank you, Mayor Elicker. For my part, I would say I was not able to go to the LOB, but I did write a letter. So hopefully that letter was read into the record. I don't know. Okay.
That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy and staff. President's report, we did already. Head Start report, Mr. Wilcox.
Just a point of order. Is there a vote for the budget that the board, typically the board votes on to approve the budget? No.
Not yet.
Not at this meeting.
The assumption that it will be at next meeting or what?
I think, Mayor, what we normally do is that after the Board of Alders agree to what we're getting, then we come and present what we call a balanced budget with how we're going to mitigate everything, and then the board votes on it. Am I mistaken, or that's how we do it? Yes? Or do we present again with your feedback and then you vote on what we have to go to the Board of Alders? Darnell?
Mr. Goldson?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tracy and Madam President. In the past, what we've done is we presented a budget that we voted on before the Board of Alders voted on their budget. So we made it clear to them what our budget was and what our needs were. And then once they approved their budget, we came back and made adjustments to our budget. Okay. So I agree with Mayor Elicker that we should probably vote on this document, make it official, making it our official position.
Okay.
That's what we've done in the past.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Mr. Wilcox?
I was just going to point out, we have another board meeting before the meeting with the alders. So if that's something that's needed, it could be done at our next board meeting, which would allow for any suggestions or that we have to be incorporated in this. So because that'll be the near final, as was told to us earlier by Ms. Hannons, it's a very solid draft, but it also is one where there's going to be changes like on some of the demographic information or the charts. And we'll see a more complete report on, I think, Monday on the Defining the Gap project, which might also add in some of the information as to where some of the needs are that we need to be addressing.
So you reminded me of something, Mr. Wilcox. At our last personnel search committee meeting, we talked about potentially not having the Monday meeting because we have the interviews of the on the Monday. So maybe what we could do is just have a special meeting just to vote on this item. Either sometime next week or on the Monday, but Dr. Sklerstein needs us by 5:15 on Monday.
So
go ahead, Mr. Wilcox.
If I may, I'm reasonably certain, although I don't know for sure, but I imagine there are going to be some F&O items that we need to address and not wait until, mid-April. So we might need to have I think, unless I'm very wrong, we're going to need to have at least a short meeting to deal with some spending items, and then maybe this as well. But I mean, that could be a meeting without other things attached to it.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it'll just be a special meeting next week after, like maybe Tuesday or Wednesday after something happens. Just because on the Monday we're going to have a tight schedule.
Not more than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Madam President.
Mr. Golson?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm looking at the agenda, I'm looking at the schedule in the budget, and it says that it's being presented to the Board of Alders on March 30. Today is already March 13th.
Yeah.
We have it in front of us now. I'm not hearing that there's going to be any really major changes to it. Unless I'm wrong, that's what I'm hearing. I don't see why we should put off on just approving it tonight if there's no major problems. I'm confused about what the holdup is on approving it now.
Dr. Tracy and then Dr. Yarborough.
that's what I was gonna say. The number in terms of the 6.5% increase is not gonna change.
Right.
Even if we add anything else to that, that's the bottom line, $11.8 million. So that will be our ask. So that's not gonna change. So I believe we could vote on that tonight, and then whatever changes in midway we put in, because it's not gonna affect the bottom line.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Dr. Yarborough?
I appreciate the work that's being done on defining the gap, and I would like to see more of that information because it could change the bottom line. So I would like to see that come out at our next F&O meeting. And then about the 27th, when we have our next board meeting, we can firm up the financial numbers and vote then. So, I mean, unless there is something that we need to get to the alders before the 27th or before their hearing.
Yeah, we do have at least the week, next week after F&O that we could do a quick meeting just to vote on the F&O items and this item if we need to. Mr. Wilcox? Thank you, Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. If we were going to vote on it tonight, we'd have to vote to add it to the agenda, and we'd be voting to add to an agenda board approval of a $207 million budget proposal. So
not that
that's we have this. The board meets again on the 27th, I believe, of this month, or around then, at least to pass this and the other whatever F&O items, which is before the alders meeting where this will be presented to them. So I think functionally, that's if the goal is to have this voted on by this board as the draft to go to the alders meeting, we will still meet that timeline, which was part of the reason for Ms. Hannon's having it on the agenda tonight, so that there could be time to make changes in order to bring it back before the board before she goes to the alders.
Yeah, and I think that we could either meet on Monday, the 27th around 4:30 to give us a little time to go over the F&O and this item, and still be okay, I think.
But
I just, Madam President, I just want to remind the board that we have a lot of meetings around the superintendent search and a lot of full days around that superintendent search, and trying to cram this budget approval in between that time. You know, it could get a little crazy, but if that's the will of the board, that's the will of the board. I'm not going to argue the point.
My concern is we didn't have this as an agenda item for action, as Mr. Wilcox stated, and it's a pretty big item. So I would rather see it on the agenda so that the public can. Dr. Tracy?
Although my voice may not count because I'm not a voting board member, but I want to say this. We need to be able to give the elders the budget materials ahead of time for them to get familiarized with it before we have our meeting on the 30th. I think it's very close, and that's why I had Miss Linda actually present tonight. We know we had that time frame, but as I look at what's going to go on for the next couple of days from the 27th to the 30th, it's going to be quite a crazy time to plug in everything in. So the least the board can do is vote to add it to the agenda item and pass it in its draft form. And whatever we need to fix up, we will do that in preparation for the Board of Alders meeting. That's just my 2 cents worth. I don't see why.
That's why I'm also proposing that we just meet after F and O sometime next week, just for the F and O items and this item. Just so that it's on an agenda and posted as a voting item, as an agenda, as a action item. Attorney Alexiadis?
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah. As I am not a board member, I don't take any position on whether you act on it or not. I just want to point out that that the topic is on the agenda. So there is notice to the public that the matter is going to be discussed. I would still recommend voting to add the vote to the agenda. But it's just, I just want to point out, it's not as if it's not there at all. So the board has in its discretion, an option as to which way to handle it, as you've been discussing.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Dr. Benitez?
So, yes, I was thinking that we should not do it tonight, thinking that it might not be clear to the public what we were doing tonight around the budget. But I can understand what Attorney Alexiadis is saying in terms of the topic being there. And if the public was interested in having some sort of an opinion, they may have come forward. And I do see that we are going to be extremely busy on the week of the 27th. Again, I don't have a problem waiting till then, but I believe that Dr. Tracy is asking us to give her some time with an approval so that she can give the alders the materials prior to their meeting and not just 2-3 days before.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Ms. Hammonds?
Yes, my concern is that we're now putting the budget book together that goes with this budget. And, it's page by page, school by school with the demographics. And I'm just worried that, we won't have enough time to have the book ready by that particular date if we're not going to vote on it until the 2027.
Good point.
Madam President?
Mr. Golson?
Thank you, Madam President. I think we could put it into this debate by having a vote on it. So I'm going to move that we amend the agenda to add an approval for the budget. If majority of the board members think we shouldn't do it, then we'll vote against it and we'll do it at some other meeting. But I think at this point, let's just have a vote on it, settle it, and move on. So I'm moving that we amend the agenda to add a vote on the budget.
There a second?
Second.
It's been properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing
Mr.
none.
Mr. Yarborough has his hand up.
No, Dr. Joyner and then Dr. Yarborough.
I'll
Sorry,
defer to
Doctor.
Dr. Yarborough since he's on the finance committee. And I'll speak briefly after he speaks.
Go ahead, Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, I'm just noting that the finance committee does meet on the 20th. And usually things are finalized then, and then it comes to the board. So it's not necessarily the case that if we were to vote on something the 27th, the board book and everything should start being put together the 20th, either for that presentation or possibly after, because the bulk of the conversation and the work on the budget is done during the finance and operations meeting. I just don't think we need to rush it. And I do agree with the point of trying to get the alders, the alders, the information they need. I think that's responsible and respectable thing to do. So I do agree with that.
Agreed, and I'll remind you all, I've said multiple times, I don't plan on us having a meeting on the 27th. But having a special meeting in the next week after F&O. Quick special meeting just for this item and the F&O items. So I'll put that out there again. Dr. Joyner and then Mr. Golson.
I'm actually agreeing with you and Dr. Yarborough. I think if we were gonna vote on it tonight, we should have had forewarning that we're gonna vote on it.
Yeah.
And I also think that anytime you do a booklet, you can always do an addendum, and you can do additions, and that's not a lot. And I know Ms. Hannons has a lot on her plate. There's a whole lot you can get done, and then add to it as things change if there's stuff not resolved. But I don't think it's prudent for us to vote tonight. We need to give people more time to take a look at what we're proposing, and I think your suggestion handles the issue of timing and publication. So I would be against voting tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Golson?
Thank you, Madam President. I was just supporting the superintendent and the CFO in their position that they would like to have a vote tonight. We clearly don't have the 2/3 to amend the agenda, so I'll withdraw my motion so we can get to ending this meeting. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Golson. Mr. Wilcox and then Dr. Tracy.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at meeting minutes from our board meetings last year. I don't think in the past, or at least in the past couple of years, we voted on the draft that goes to the alders anyways. I'm looking and I'm not seeing votes taken on that. The binding real votes happen after the fact when the money is allocated at the city, so that then the board is brought to the board a budget with the mitigation factors and things built in there. So I don't think in the past, I mean, I'm looking at last year in 2022 and I'm not seeing it listed as a vote of the whole board. The board's been notified. We see what the numbers are going to be. We're not raising big objections to them. We haven't voted on it before, so I don't see a need to hop in and vote on it right now, particularly since there might be some changes in the details, in which case we'd be voting on something that, even if the bottom line, I mean, a percentage isn't going to change very much, but a dollar might change, in which case what do we do then? Are we going to come back and amend this, or are we going to build into the vote some wiggle room or something? I just think that I don't see the need right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Golson?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not going to belabor the point. I can tell you when I was president and when Dr. Joyner was president, we always voted on the budget before it went to the Board of Alders. I don't know. I don't remember what's happened in the last couple of years. And it's really, since this is probably my last budget, it's not that big a deal to me, one way or another. That'll be something that you guys will have to resolve sometime in the future. I have withdrawn my motion. I don't know if the seconder has, and I'm really at this point ready to move on. we have a really busy week and a busy couple of weeks over the next couple of weeks, and I just rather get this done over and done with. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Golson.
so you just said something that I'm confused. If I second, I have to withdraw if the person who, okay, so I'm withdrawing as long as we do this the right way. And again, I need your advice. So I don't recall what we did last year. I was still very new.
Dr. Tracy, did you have your hand up and take it down, or? Okay.
Yes, I had it and I took it down. It's fine with me. I just know that on my side, there are a lot of things going on. A lot of things going on that I am not shared with the board, but there's a lot of things going on. And the more we act upon things while we have our individuals around to get certain things done, the better it is for us. And I rest my case. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the Head Start Committee report. Mr. Wilcox.
This will be very brief because there's no report, because our next meeting is this coming Thursday at 5 p.m.
And Finance and Operations.
I think citywide school building committee is next on the agenda, and that was, we met last Thursday, and the presentation of the major capital projects and so on is posted on the website.
Thank you. And finance and operations.
In finance and operations, we've already had mentioned that the transportation, well, I don't know if we've mentioned it or not, the transportation contract RFP is posted on the city's bonfire posting system. And so that is in the mix. There is also, we've already mentioned the Defining the Gap project, and we're going to be hearing more of that on next week. And then finally, we're moving along with Series 3000 policies, looking at another group of those. And so we'll be finalizing another set of those next Monday and sending them on to the governance committee, in addition to the ones we've already sent. And then we'll be picking up another group. And the next group will include the purchasing related policies, just to update that so that we're in line with city requirements. And so that's all happening at F&O.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. More questions or comments from Mr. Wilcox? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the governance report. Dr. Benitez.
Yes. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. Yes, so we have been working really diligently. I have to say that Ms. Tiffany Jackson and Ms. Jasmine Ong have been a great help with this. We have several policies we are submitting within the 3000 series for a first reading. If we have any questions in those, I have asked that Mr. Lamb or Ms. Hannans help us clarifying any questions that the board may have. Since I am trying to keep my sanity, I don't know everything about all these policies. So I'm asking staff members to help us when we submit new things to you. Additionally, we are continuing to work with Dr. Joyner and Ms. Hannans, Keisha Hannans, on updating policies within the Series 6000. And our own governance committee is updating Series 5000. That is pretty much what we are doing. If you have any questions about Series 3000 first reading items, please, you may direct them at this meeting or by writing to Ms. Hannans or Mr. Lamb.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Questions or comments for Dr. Benitez? Okay, food service task group report, Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. Yes, we met on last Wednesday, and the community partners and Ms. Gale continue to work on the food gap subgroup for the upcoming break that the students will experience. And the district through Mr. Lamb continues to work on sustainability along with Ms. Gale, and also partnering with different stakeholders and having a conversation about our food sustainability and environmental efforts. So that's underway, and we'll continue to work towards that end. That's all.
Thank you, Dr.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Golden, Dr.
There are no questions for the food and finance.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Mr. Yarborough.
It's all good.
Yarborough. No.
I don't know the answers. I don't know the answers. So,
All right, we're voting on the adjournment. Mr. Golden,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.